What was the scariest thing that happened during your childhood? When I was 10 or 11, a guy came up to me and my friend in a park and said he was a gymnastics coach. We were sitting on the monkey bars and he offered to help us flip up onto the top by grabbing our butts. He told us to meet him the next day and he'd take us to the Y on the other side of the city. We didn't go, thankfully. A girl the same age as us was kidnapped from the same area shortly after, and her body was found near that Y. Was it the same guy? Can't say for sure, but he was never caught, and the location similarities have creeped me out for decades. And yes, I reported what happened to me and my friend. My dad has some serious anger issues, so my entire childhood was pretty terrifying. One event always sticks out though. My sister and I were on summer break. We were supposed to be cleaning the house. We hadn't finished by the time my dad got home from work, so he lost it. Hez screaming, kicking, and throwing shit around. My sister got so worked up she threw up, so Hez screaming at us to clean it up. After he ended up locking us in our room for the weekend. We ended up peeing in an old ice cream bucket that we kept Barbie clothes in, because whenever we'd ask to come out for any reason, we'd get screamed at some more. My stepfather drove me into some secluded woods with a chainsaw, axe, trash bags, and gloves in the trunk, and told me the only reason he wasn't killing me then and there was because my mom asked him to wait 2 weeks. Then he essentially said, if my dad got custody he would kill us all. Took me to McDonald's, then took me to school late. Told the counselor I had been making good grades, so he rewarded me by letting me sleep in. Dad definitely got custody. I nearly drowned in a recreational swimming pool. Think I was around 6 years old and not much of a swimming talent. My parents had my older sisters look after me while they were swimming around with my uncle and aunt. At some point I went under and swallowed some water which made me cough badly. I couldn't stay afloat anymore and was waving my arms all over the place trying to get someone's attention to help me. My sister saw me and she did something I still give her a hard time over. She waved back at me. That's all she did. She waved back. I thought to myself, him dying. Luckily a lifeguard saw me and pulled me out in time. Still not comfortable whenever I go swimming now. I was about 7. I was waiting for the school bus one morning, and about 50 yards away a mother was riding her bike with her child, strapped in a bike seat behind her. She cycled in between the curb and a speed bump and fell. Her baby's head hit a piece of rubber that was sticking out of the speed bump. She got up and ran with the child screaming, "My baby," a few houses down where cops and an ambulance were handling another situation. Don't know what happened to the child. The mother's screams were the most haunting thing I've ever heard to this day. I was playing hide and seek in a small village in the summer when I was 8. I was walking behind the fence to find a way to enter a hidden area, but there was a hole I didn't see. I walked in it and fell down 15 feet only to get caught midair by brambles. My hands, my legs, my arms were in blood, and I felt many ants climb my body. And I couldn't move. I was midair with brambles stuck in me. I started shouting and crying, and my friends came to see me. They called some strangers, the parents were away. At some point, an old man slipped and fell down right next to me. He was a lot taller, so he could touch the ground, and he was dressed properly to not get hurt. He held me up and got me out of all that mess. We finally found a way out. After 30 minutes of being stuck for me, I had dark blood pouring down, covering my legs and my arms. It looked like something out of a movie. That's the scariest thing that happened to me as a child. I still have scars nowadays. Someone once tried to kidnap me and a friend at our brother's baseball game. We wandered off on our own for a while when this guy came out of nowhere and tried to get us to come with him, and after multiple refusals from us, lunged at us and tried to grab us. The hillbilly neighbors tried to run me over with a truck. They thought it would be funny to hear me scream. I was 4 years old. Their dad was cop, so nothing was done. Boys just having a little fun f'cause. It's been 40 years, and I still see that orange pickup in my nightmares. My babysitter, when I was about 6, duct taped my brother to a chair and threatened him with a knife for being mean to me. 6-year-old me thought there wasn't anything wrong with this. A few years later he went to prison for murdering 2 people while on ice. He just got released in the past couple years. Saw a decapitated body of an obese man in an open drain on my way to school. Large group of people were there. Blood was everywhere. Turns out the dude owed money to gangsters. I was 8 years old. 5th grade. I was the shoot. Academics, sports, popularity et al. New guy comes in. He is cool. We become friends. Slowly he displaces me from everything. My crush who would spend all the time with me usually changed places and would hang around with him. My world was falling apart. I wished all the plagues upon him. Then one day we were out on a field trip. This guy was standing facing a wall and looking at a poster. A bus was backing up and crushed him between the wall and the bus. I had a great view of it all. People started screaming and the driver moved the bus. I clearly remember him collapsing with a semi-drunken expression on his face. I don't remember if there was any blood. He was in a coma for 3 weeks. I didn't go visit him because of the guilt. 3 horrible weeks for me as I felt responsible because I bore him ill will. It's scary when your conscience blames you for something like this. He recovered well enough, but couldn't walk very well. He changed schools soon after. The incident haunted me for years. I saw a man die during rodeo while bull riding when I was 8. My parents were real big into bull riding and the dude just got thrown off and ragdolled when he hit the ground. The clown scared off the bull and he just wouldn't move. The EMS dudes came along and put him on a stretcher and carted him away, and as he was being carted we could see his head was turned the wrong way and everyone knew then he was dead. My brother and I pretty much grew up in the small South of California rodeo circuits. Junior band high school. I only remember a couple bad incidents for junior rodeo, but my brother decided one year to try bareback bronc riding. His first event he was doing okay. Then the horse did a weird buck that caused him to lose his grip and slid up towards the hind end. He started to come down just as the horse was kicking up again and ended up getting kicked in the head and chest. They had to life flight him to the nearby hospital, and he was fighting so much they had to restrain him to the gurney. He could have died, but he's like a cat with 9 lives. He ended up with a pretty bad concussion, permanently deaf in one ear, and had a badly broken jaw, but he lived. I remember when he came home from the hospital he was still pissed BC they cut his vest off him instead of undoing the velcro BC it was expensive. My mom and I got boned by a car doing about 80 miles per hour. I remember looking past her and saying, "Mom, watch out," because I saw the headlights a few feet away. Pretty much hit her door in a Ford Ranger. It really was in slow motion. Smoke was pouring from the radio. Then I was looking at the sky, the ground, the sky, the ground. Managed to stop on the wheels. So I said, "Mom, are you alright?" She said I needed to get out, so I did. Then she climbed out behind me because her door wouldn't up. Her arm was covered in road rash and she had a concussion. I didn't even have a bruise. A passerby took a picture of our tailgate stuck in a tree a few hundred yards away. The other driver turned out to be a pretty notorious pill seeker looking for a way to get a fix and tried blaming us for the wreck. When I was 5 or 6, my father's new Cadillac was stolen from in front of our home in PA. He saw the thief take it through our front window and, as there was no one else at home but me, grabbed me up and ran to my mother's station wagon to give chase. This was 1963, so cell phones weren't yet in the picture. My dad chased the thief about 15 miles into the next small town and past him, and then cut him off and pulled him over. He then jumped out of the station wagon and proceeded to drag the thief out of the Cadillac and start beating the thief's head on the sidewalk while yelling for someone to call the police. The police came about 10 minutes later and took the thief away. I duplicated this escapade some 40 years later in MD after my wife's Honda Civic was stolen, and I saw the thief driving in the car about 2 weeks later. I chased him for a few miles while on my cell phone with the MD State Police. The SP immediately dispatched a half-dozen cruisers while I guided them to our location. They cut the thief off at a stoplight while I watched from my car immediately behind the stolen car. The SP swarmed the thief, pulled him from the car, and threw him to the ground, and cuffed him, and dragged him away. It looked like an episode of Cops. I then followed the SP to their barracks, filled out a report, and drove my wife's car home. While not quite as violent as my father's escapade, but the effect was the same. Car recovered. Thief in jail. Saw red popsicles in the road at the bus stop. When I got closer I realized it was a freshly run over cat with its bones sticking out. School shooting. Saw a girl get shot in the ass and saw a guy get shot in the groin area. I was 14. My dad was working in Colombia and we went to visit him. We were walking down a road and this man on a motorcycle grabbed onto my mom's necklace and just kept driving. 4-year-old me was very scared of motorcycles for a very long time. Everyone was okay, and when the necklace didn't break immediately he stopped, and my dad fought him off my mom. Eventually all the commotion caused people to get out their houses and the man drove off. Saw my mom throw kitchen knives at my dad. Rough times lol. Walking home from school in 3rd grade, an older kid dared us younger kids to climb a utility pole using those handle things on the side of the pole. A classmate took the dare. The older kid boosted him up to the climbing handle things and my classmate climbed the pole. When he got to the top, he grabbed something and was immediately electrocuted and fell to our feet dead and smoking from the electrocution. Probably when I was in 4th grade and my mom had brain surgery. I suppose in hindsight, besides all the shooty and sometimes violent fighting my parents got into with each other, was a couple of incidences at school. We had an assembly held twice because an old man kept trying to get the kids to climb over the fence and go away with him. The fence was only waist height on an adult, so not exactly safe. I never saw him myself, but I think he was offering to take them back to his place and was offering them candy or something. My memory is a bit hazy. At the time you think, oh that's right, they taught us about stranger danger. Then I grew up and learned what rape and molestation was. Yep, freaking scary. Me and my friend used to explore the property adjacent to our properties. Our favorite time to explore was winter when we could see all sorts of animal tracks. When I was 10 and my friend was 9 we were exploring somewhere we'd never been before. There was quite a bit of snow on the ground and my friend fell into a lake that had a thin layer of ice with a little bit of snow covering it. I barely got him out, and since this was pre-cell phone days I ran the mile back home to grab an adult. We got him airlifted out of the woods, but he almost died of hypothermia, and it scared me so much we never went out into the woods unless it was summer. During the winter we made sure to not stray too far unless we had our dads with us. My family went to church on Sundays, and I was always incredibly bored. There was this part, especially that I didn't like, because all the people would stand up and come together in the middle aisle to hold hands. I have no idea what possessed me to think of this, but I guess I was really bored. Thus one day, I had heard about some people being able to influence people with their thoughts, so I decided to stare at the lady in front of me and think she's gonna pass out. She's gonna pass out. I did it during the whole prayer and the minute it ended she collapsed. She had to be taken out and an ambulance was called, and I don't know what happened after, but 12-year-old me was so sure I had caused it. I cried all the way home and am sure my parents thought I was just scared and overreacting, but I was too scared to say anything because I was so sure it was my fault. She probably just locked her knees or something, I realize now, but that stuck with me for years. Went to the drive-in theater with my sister and parents to see Twister. In one of the scenes from the movie, a tornado rips through the drive-in as they are watching a movie. In real life there were severe thunderstorms and a tornado watch brewing in my area. The storm hit pretty hard as that scene was happening, and it ended with me and my sister bawling our eyes out huddled in the back of our car screaming to leave. Parents thought it was hilarious. TLDR, saw Twister in 4D. Did not have fun. We were moving, had our house packed up, and we were driving cross country. We pulled into a gas station and I decided to stay in the truck because we hadn't been on the road long and I had video game magazines to read. Someone else pulled into the gas station, pumped his gas, and ran into the store and tossed money on the counter for the cashier. He came back out in a bit of a rush and left the hose in his truck when he drove off. This caused a phenomenon known as holy shoot, everything is on fire. My mom started trying to rip me out of the seat, but I was buckled in, and then she also realized FCK a lot of our stuff is in this truck. So she changed strategies. She jumped into the car so fast that she had a bruise on her knee for the next week from the shifter and took us off down the road, somewhat ironically leaving my brother at the now really super on fire gas station. But she got me to safety while my aunts got my brother out of there. From my perspective, I finally got a minute to myself, had a KTCH tongue flume, and then a 100-pound woman was screaming at me and trying to dislocate my shoulder, and then we were doing 60 miles an hour with a much ghostier version of that same woman driving the vehicle. Never got my soda though, so 4/10ths experience. My dad tried to throw my mum down the stairs. She was screaming at him. It was terrifying. When I was a smellish, awkward kid 6 to 7, also only child at the time, I went to my first sleepover with my friend and her older and younger sister. It was alright until the mom told us to go to sleep / lights out. Then my friend and her older sister punched me in the ribs / stomach a few times and told me repeatedly that my parents were never going to come back for me, that they didn't love me, and that they probably died on the way to the restaurant they were planning on going to that night. I kept trying to be strong, but after probably 30 minutes I started crying / probably full on anxiety attack. Their mom came and took me to the couch and tried to calm me down by yelling at me to stop or else I would throw up on her carpet / furniture. I remember crying more and getting confused. Do people actually throw up when they're freaked out and crying? Then at some point I fell asleep, I think, and I woke up in my parents' apartments. My mom said my friend's mom was so nice for carrying me home, but took my side after I told her what happened. It was the most traumatizing thing of my childhood, and it messed me up for quite a while. I never really made friends after that, and had a rough time ever going to a sleepover again. The summer between 2nd and 3rd grade, I went on a field trip with my day camp to the zoo. The zoo had a little kiddie jungle train which we all begged to go on, and the chaperones conceded. On the back half of the ride, the skies darkened, and it began to rain. We kept going. Shortly after, it turned into a loud and violent thunderstorm. The train stopped as we waited it out. A bolt of lightning hit a tree, and it fell down onto the train. Luckily, the car it smashed was empty, but still. The ride operators got us off of the train, and we walked along the tracks for a while in the downpour. I remember being told we had to get off the tracks because we might get electrocuted. I was separated from my group, following a bunch of people in the direction of the main zoo. I remember getting to the main part of the zoo and not seeing anyone I recognized. I also remember seeing a bunch of PCKs hiding from the rain in the gift shop, not knowing where to go, and being, well, 7. I decided to find the group bus. Now, this zoo has a very long set of stairs from the main area to parking. Also steep. There are escalators, but the storm has shut them off. I walked down the frozen escalator in darkness, while the trees whipped against the windows and the walls shook from thunder. I did find the bus, and the driver was chilling out there and drinking coffee. While I found the storm trip scary, I apparently had a better time than my older brother. He stayed with the group, and they were all guided to shelter together in a fake concrete teepee. Apparently, he freaked out when they couldn't find me. This was the 80s, so long before cell phones.
N.